The emergency alarm screamed through the quiet halls of Station Beta 7, making everyone jump from their chairs. Commander Thixara rushed to her communication console, her forearms dancing across the holographic controls. The signal was weak, broken by static, but the universal distress frequency was unmistakable. "Please, anyone, our world is dying." The voice belonged to a Zephyrian, one of the peaceful butterfly-like beings from the outer rim systems. Their translator struggled with the alien words, but the fear came through clearly. Thixara leaned forward, adjusting the signal strength with practiced movements. "This is Colony 779 calling for immediate help. The Vraktar Empire has come to our world. They have killed millions of our people. They are taking our children as slaves. They burn our crystal forests for sport." Station Beta 7 monitored communications across 3 solar systems for the Galactic Confederation. Thixara had heard many distress calls in her 20 years of service, but this one made her blood run cold. The Vraktar Empire was known throughout the galaxy as the most brutal force in known space. They conquered worlds not for resources or territory, but for the simple joy of causing pain. "We offer everything we have," the Zephyrian voice continued, growing weaker. "Our entire planetary treasury, all our crystal mines, our most sacred artifacts. Please, someone must help us. The monsters are coming to finish us tonight." Thixara immediately forwarded the signal to Confederation Command. Within an hour, she received the expected response. "Noted and logged. No action authorized. Fracted territory is beyond our jurisdiction." It was always the same answer. The Confederation was powerful, but they avoided conflicts with the Vraktar Empire. The cost was too high. The Vraktar were 12 feet tall, with claws that could cut through steel and acidic blood that melted most metals. They had conquered 17 star systems through pure violence. Their warriors felt no fear, showed no mercy, and took pleasure in the screams of their victims. The Zephyrians were gentle beings who had never known war. They lived in harmony with their crystal forests, creating beautiful art and music. Their bones were hollow like birds, designed for their low-gravity world. A single Vraktar warrior could kill dozens of them without breaking stride. Thixara stared at her console, feeling sick. The signal continued to broadcast on the open emergency channel, repeating the same desperate plea. Other monitoring stations across the galaxy were receiving it, but no one would respond. The Zephyrians would die alone, forgotten, just another species that had crossed paths with the Vraktar Empire. But the signal traveled far beyond the civilized core worlds. It reached the outer rim, the frontier zones where wild species lived on dangerous worlds. Most of these planets were marked as hostile to galactic life on the star charts. The beings who lived there were considered primitive, barely worth notice by the advanced civilizations. On one small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system, the signal was picked up by a monitoring station buried deep in a mountain range. The beings who received it were bipedal, with only 2 arms and skin that came in various shades of brown and pink. They had no natural weapons like claws or fangs, no armored hide, no acidic blood. By galactic standards, they should have been extinct long ago. The human technician who first heard the transmission sat in silence for several minutes after it ended. Then he forwarded it to his superiors with a simple note. Priority 1. Possible first contact situation requiring immediate response. Within 6 hours, the signal had reached the highest levels of Earth's United Defense Coalition. President Martinez convened an emergency session of the Global Security Council. Representatives from every nation gathered in the underground bunker that served as humanity's command center for extraterrestrial affairs. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Martinez began, "we have received what appears to be a genuine distress call from an alien civilization. Our xenobiology team has confirmed that the transmission shows signs of authentic alien origin. A peaceful species called the Zephyrians is being attacked by something called the Vraktar Empire." The room erupted in excited chatter. First contact had been humanity's dream for generations. They had built radio telescopes, sent signals into space, and prepared protocols for meeting other intelligent life. But they had never expected it to come in the form of a cry for help. General Thompson stood up, his weathered face serious. "Mr. President, we don't know anything about these aliens or their enemies. This could be a trap, a test, or something beyond our understanding." "You're right," Martinez replied. "But look at this." The main screen showed a translation of the Zephyrian message, along with what their scientists had been able to piece together about both species. The Zephyrians were described as peaceful, artistic beings who had never developed weapons of war. The Vraktar were portrayed as brutal conquerors who destroyed civilizations for entertainment. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of the Xenobiology department, stepped forward. Based on the biological data embedded in their transmission, the Zephyrians are physically fragile beings from a low-gravity world. They're asking for help because they literally cannot fight back. It would be like asking butterflies to battle tigers. "And what about these Vraktar?" asked the Chinese representative. Chen pulled up another display. Large, predatory species, physically powerful by galactic standards. But here's what's interesting. According to this data, they evolved on a world that would be considered mildly challenging by our standards. Lower gravity than Earth, thinner atmosphere, fewer environmental dangers. The room fell quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had evolved on a world that regularly tried to kill them. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, ice ages, predators, diseases, poisonous plants and animals. Earth was a hostile environment that had forged its children in fire and blood. Every human alive was descended from beings who had survived conditions that would kill most galactic species in minutes. President Martinez looked around the room. The question before us is simple. Do we respond to this call for help? Do we risk everything on our first contact with alien life? The debate that followed lasted 18 hours. Some argued for caution, for gathering more information, for protecting Earth's secrets. Others pushed for immediate action, saying that humanity's first impression on the galactic stage should be as protectors of the innocent. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Every nation, every representative, every military leader agreed on one thing. They would not let an entire species be wiped out while they had the power to help. The message they sent back was brief. Zephyrian Colony 779, this is Earth Defense Coalition. We have received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold your position and protect your people. We are bringing fire to drive back the darkness. The signal raced through space at light speed, carrying humanity's first words to another species. On Station Beta 7, Commander Thixara picked up the transmission and stared at her console in shock. Someone had answered. But who are these humans, and what did they mean about bringing fire? She was about to find out why the galaxy would soon learn to fear the Deathworlders. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the largest gathering of military leaders in human history. The underground conference room in Colorado had been expanded 3 times, but it was still packed with officers from every branch of service from every nation on Earth. The weight of what they were planning hung heavy in the recycled air. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the room's speakers. "We are about to embark on humanity's first interstellar war. Our enemy is the Vraktar Empire, and based on the intelligence we've gathered from intercepted communications, they are everything the Zephyrians claimed and worse." The main screen lit up with images reconstructed from alien data streams. The Vraktar were nightmarish beings that looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a shark and given it the intelligence to use tools. They stood 12 feet tall on powerful legs with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were elongated, filled with rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Most terrifying of all, their blood was highly acidic, dissolving most metals and organic materials on contact. General Morrison from the Air Force whistled low. "Those are some ugly customers. What's their military capability?" Chen switched to the next display. They've conquered 17 star systems using a combination of advanced technology and pure brutality. Their ships are heavily armed and well shielded. Their soldiers are trained from birth to be killing machines. They don't take prisoners, they don't negotiate, and they don't retreat. When they arrive at a planet, they give the inhabitants one choice: surrender and become slaves or die fighting. "And the Zephyrians chose to fight?" asked Admiral Vasquez from the Navy. "The Zephyrians never had a choice," Chen replied grimly. "The Vraktar consider peaceful species to be boring. They prefer to hunt beings who can't fight back, because it's more entertaining. According to our intercepts, they've been using Zephyrian civilians for target practice." The room erupted in angry mutters. Colonel Zhang from the Marines stood up, his scarred face twisted in disgust. "Ma'am, with respect, how exactly are we supposed to fight these things? We've never been in space combat. We don't have interstellar ships or energy weapons." Chen smiled for the first time since the briefing began. "That's where you're wrong, Colonel. We may not have purpose-built warships, but we do have something better. We have human engineering and human stubbornness." The display changed to show images of Earth's industrial capabilities. Massive mining ships designed to crack open asteroids. Atmospheric fighters built to operate in conditions that would destroy most aircraft. Manufacturing plants that could retool in days to produce whatever was needed. We're converting every mining vessel we have into kinetic bombardment platforms, Chen explained. Those ships were built to survive in the vacuum of space while processing raw asteroids. Their hulls are tougher than most military vessels. We're mounting mass drivers on them, weapons that fire chunks of metal at significant fractions of light speed. Dr. Park from the Science Division took over the presentation. The beautiful thing about kinetic weapons is that they don't rely on exotic technologies. It's just physics. Mass times velocity equals energy. A piece of tungsten moving at 10% of light speed carries more destructive force than any energy weapon in the Vraktar arsenal. What about troops? Asked General Thompson. We can't win a war with ship-to-ship combat alone. Chen's smile grew wider. That's the best part. According to the galactic database we've been downloading, humans are classified as an impossible species from a Class 12 death world. Do you know what that means? The room fell silent. Most of them had grown up thinking of Earth as a pleasant, comfortable world. Yes, it had its dangers, but it was home. It means, Chen continued, that by galactic standards, Earth is the most hostile planet known to support intelligent life. Our gravity is crushing. Most galactic species would be flattened instantly by our normal atmospheric pressure. Our oxygen levels are toxic to most aliens. Our weather patterns would be considered extreme natural disasters on most worlds. She pulled up a comparison chart that showed Earth next to average galactic conditions. The differences were staggering. Earth's gravity was nearly 3 times galactic normal. Its atmospheric pressure was twice as high. The temperature variations that humans considered normal weather would kill most aliens within minutes. But here's the really interesting part, Dr. Park added. Humans aren't just surviving in these conditions, we're thriving. We've adapted to be persistence predators. We literally hunt our prey to death by following it until it collapses from exhaustion. Our cardiovascular systems are so efficient that we can maintain activity levels that would cause most species to die from overexertion. Colonel Zhang was staring at the display in amazement. Are you saying we're naturally superior to these Vraktar? I'm saying, Chen replied, that humans evolved in conditions that make the Vraktar homeworld look like a vacation resort. Their claws and acidic blood are certainly dangerous, but remember, we survived ice ages, predators with bigger teeth, diseases that killed millions, and natural disasters that reshaped continents. Every human in this room is descended from beings who looked at a world full of things trying to kill them and said, "Challenge accepted." The mood in the room was shifting. The fear and uncertainty were being replaced by something else, a cold, calculating anger. These Vraktar had made a mistake. They had attacked the innocent while believing they were the strongest predators in the galaxy. They were about to learn otherwise. "What's our timeline?" asked Admiral Chen's counterpart from the European Defense Force. "The industrial conversion is already underway," Chen replied. "Every major shipyard on and off Earth is retooling. We're also mass-producing personal armor and weapons designed specifically for the alien environment. The Vraktar blood that's so dangerous to other species, it's basically just strong acid to us. We've been dealing with worse industrial chemicals for centuries." She paused, looking around the room at the faces of humanity's military leadership. "Ladies and gentlemen, I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. We're about to announce our presence to a galaxy that doesn't know we exist by picking a fight with their most feared enemy. But we've analyzed the situation from every angle, and I believe we can win." "How can you be so sure?" asked someone from the back of the room. Chen's expression grew grim. "Because the Vraktar have spent their entire history fighting prey animals. They've never faced another predator species. They don't know what to do when something fights back with intelligence, determination, and superior tactics." The final display showed Earth's mobilization statistics. Every space-capable vessel was being converted for military use. Factories were running around the clock to produce equipment. Most importantly, volunteers were signing up faster than they could be processed. When humanity had learned about the Zephyrians' plight, the response had been immediate and overwhelming. "We have over 2 million volunteers for the first wave," Chen announced. Former military, police, firefighters, emergency responders, people who have spent their lives running toward danger instead of away from it. "We're going to select the best 50,000 for this mission." Colonel Zhang stood up again. "Ma'am, what's our battle plan?" Chen's smile turned predatory. It's simple, Colonel. We're going to show the Vraktar what happens when apex predators decide to hunt. The room erupted in cheers and war cries from dozens of different languages and cultures. For the first time in human history, the species was truly united behind a single cause. They were going to war not for conquest or resources, but to protect strangers who had asked for help. The Vraktar Empire had no idea what was coming for them. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Captain Marcus Torres felt his stomach clench at what he saw through the bridge windows of his converted mining vessel, now called the UES Retribution. The Zephyrian homeworld hung in space like a wounded bird, its once beautiful crystal forests burning in great orange fires that could be seen from orbit. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Foster from the navigation station. They're actually burning the whole planet. Torres had seen combat in 3 different wars on Earth, but this was something else entirely. The Vraktar orbital platforms hung above the planet like metal vultures, their massive mining beams carving deep scars into the surface. Every few minutes, another section of forest would explode into flame as the aliens destroyed millennia of growth for no reason other than entertainment. Sir, called out Ensign Park from the communications console, I'm picking up multiple Zephyrian distress signals from the planet's surface. They're hiding in underground cavern systems. Estimated survivors are in the hundreds of thousands. And the Vraktar forces? 12 orbital platforms, estimated crew of 2,000 each. Unknown number of ground forces, but thermal imaging suggests massive troop movements in all major population centers. Torres studied the tactical display. The Vraktar had positioned their platforms in a standard orbital bombardment formation, designed to rain destruction down on anything that moved on the surface. It was the kind of setup used by predators who had never faced real opposition. Communications, send a message to the Zephyrians on all frequencies. Tell them that Earth Defense Coalition forces have arrived and to stay in their shelters. We're about to make some noise up here. He turned to his weapons officer. Commander? Walsh, are the kinetic platforms ready? All 6 mass drivers are loaded and targeted, sir. Tungsten rods, each one weighing about 2 tons, accelerated to 12% light speed. Outstanding. Torres opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Retribution Actual. You are cleared to engage. Let's show these bastards what happens when they pick on someone who can't fight back. The 12 ships of the human fleet opened fire simultaneously. The tungsten rods were invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast to track, but their impact was spectacular. The first Vraktar orbital platform simply vanished in a ball of superheated plasma. The second platform managed to raise its shields just in time to watch them fail completely against the raw kinetic force. On the command deck of the Vraktar flagship Bone Crusher, Admiral Zektar watched in shock as 4 of his orbital platforms were destroyed in the first 30 seconds of combat. The primitive ships that had appeared from nowhere were using weapons he didn't recognize, and his advanced energy shields were useless against them. Admiral, his tactical officer, hissed in the clicking language of the Vraktar. These projectiles are not energy-based. They're solid matter moving at impossible speeds. Impossible, Zektar snarled back. No civilized species uses kinetic weapons. They're too primitive, too unpredictable. But even as he spoke, 2 more of his platforms were reduced to debris clouds. The unknown enemy was using weapons that bypassed every defense his people had developed. Worse, the attacking ships were maneuvering with a precision that suggested experienced void combat crews. Sir, his communications officer reported, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead enemy vessel. They're using primitive radio waves. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was calm, professional, and utterly alien. Vraktar vessels, this is Captain Marcus Torres of the Earth Defense Coalition. You have exactly 5 minutes to withdraw all forces from this system. If you are still here in 5 minutes and 1 second, we will destroy every ship and platform you have. Zektar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. And what gives you the authority to make such demands, primitive? The fact that we just destroyed half your fleet in 30 seconds, Torres replied. And the fact that we came here to help people you were murdering for fun. Your choice, alien. Leave now, or find out why nobody messes with the Deathworlders. Deathworlders? Zektar had never heard the term. but something about it made his skin crawl. Still, he was a Vraktar admiral. He had conquered 17 systems. You face the might of the Vraktar Empire, unknown species. We are apex predators. We know no fear. Yeah, well, Torres replied. Today you're going to learn. The human fleet resumed firing. The remaining Vraktar platforms tried to return fire with their energy weapons. But the human ships were designed to survive in asteroid fields. Their hulls were built to shrug off impacts that would gut normal spacecraft. The alien energy beams barely scored their armor. Within 10 minutes, the last Vraktar orbital platform was drifting dead in space. But Torres knew the real fight was just beginning. The ground forces were still planet-side, and the Zephyrian civilians needed immediate help. All right, people, Torres announced to his crew. Time for the hard part. We're going down to the surface. The human landing ships were converted atmospheric fighters built to operate in Earth's violent weather systems. They descended through the smoke-filled atmosphere of the Zephyrian world, like metal rain, heading for the largest concentration of enemy forces. As they broke through the clouds, Torres got his first look at the enemy ground troops. The Vraktar warriors were exactly as described, 12-foot-tall nightmares with claws like sword blades and mandibles that clicked constantly as they communicated. They had been systematically destroying a Zephyrian city, apparently for the simple joy of watching it burn. The first squad of human Marines hit the ground running. Sergeant Maria Santos rolled out of her dropship and immediately came face to face with a Vraktar warrior who stood twice her height and outweighed her by several hundred pounds. The alien looked down at the small human in confusion. What is this? The Vraktar clicked in its own language. A new type of Zephyrian? Santos didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She put 3 rounds from her Gauss rifle into the alien's center mass. The hypervelocity projectiles punched through its natural armor like it was paper. The Vraktar looked down at the holes in its chest in amazement, then collapsed. Contact! Santos yelled into her comm. Enemy down. These things go down easy if you hit them hard enough. All across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. The Vraktar had evolved to be impressive predators on their homeworld, but they had never faced an enemy that could match their aggression and exceed their tactical thinking. Humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to work together to bring down bigger, stronger opponents. Lieutenant Jake Morrison found himself surrounded by 3 Vraktar warriors in the ruins of what had been a Zephyrian art gallery. The aliens clicked and hissed at each other, clearly planning to attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Morrison smiled behind his helmet's faceplate. You know what, boys? Back on Earth, we have things called pack hunters too. He triggered his suit's flashbang grenades while simultaneously diving for cover. The Vraktar, with their sensitive eyes adapted for their dim homeworld, were temporarily blinded. By the time their vision cleared, Morrison had circled around behind them and opened fire with his shotgun. Deeper in the city, Captain Torres himself led a rescue operation into the underground caves where the Zephyrians were hiding. The first time he saw one of the butterfly-like aliens, he understood why they needed help. They were beautiful, delicate beings who seemed to be made of gossamer and moonlight. Their wings shimmered with colors that changed as they moved, and their large eyes held an intelligence that was both ancient and innocent. Don't be afraid, Torres said through his translator. We're here to help. The Zephyrian elder who approached him stood barely 4 feet tall and looked like she weighed about as much as a large house cat. You are the humans? She asked in a voice like wind chimes. Yes, we received your distress call. But how? You look so fragile. No claws, no natural armor, no weapons growing from your body. Torres looked down at himself. Compared to the Vraktar, he supposed humans did look pretty unimpressive. Sometimes the most dangerous predators don't look it, he replied. We learned a long time ago that intelligence beats size, and determination beats natural weapons. As if to prove his point, an explosion echoed through the cavern system. The Vraktar were trying to blast their way into the refugee shelters. Torres spoke quickly into his comm. All units, priority target. The bastards are trying to get to the civilians. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Human forces converged on the tunnel entrances like antibodies attacking a virus. The Vraktar found themselves facing an enemy that not only refused to be intimidated by their size and natural weapons, but actually seemed to get more dangerous when protecting others. By sunset on the first day, the Vraktar ground commander sent a panicked message to his fleet. Request immediate extraction. The enemy is not behaving according to any tactical doctrine. They show no fear, feel no pain, and fight with coordination unlike anything we have encountered. They are not prey animals. I repeat, these humans are apex predators. But there was no fleet left to extract them. The humans had seen to that. Torres stood on a hill overlooking the burning city, as his medics worked with Zephyrian survivors. The first day of humanity's first interstellar war was almost over, and they had won decisively. But he knew this was just the beginning. Word would spread through the Vraktar Empire that someone had not only fought back but won. The galaxy was about to learn that the Deathworlders had arrived. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler 442b, the news had spread through the Vraktar Empire like wildfire. A species called humans had appeared from nowhere and completely destroyed an entire Vraktar invasion force. High Admiral Gextar, Supreme Commander of the Vraktar military, read the reports with growing disbelief. Impossible, he hissed to his staff officers aboard the massive dreadnought Death's Glory. 17 battle groups destroyed by 12 primitive vessels? Our ground forces routed by beings half our size with no natural weapons? His intelligence officer, a scarred veteran named Kriktar, placed another data tablet on the command table. Sir, we've intercepted communications from their homeworld. They call their planet Earth and describe it as a Class 12 death world, the highest hostile rating in the Galactic database. Show me. The tactical display lit up with everything they had learned about humanity in 3 weeks of desperate intelligence gathering. What they found defied everything the Vraktar thought they knew about how species developed. Earth's gravity was nearly 3 times what the Vraktar considered normal. Its atmospheric pressure would crush most galactic species instantly. The temperature swings between seasons were so extreme that they would be considered natural disasters on most worlds. Worse, the planet was covered with predatory species that had evolved alongside the humans. Sir, Kriktar continued, according to their own historical records, humans spent their entire developmental period fighting for survival against creatures larger and more dangerous than themselves. They evolved to be persistence hunters. They literally chase their prey until it dies from exhaustion. Gextar studied the biological data. Humans had cardiovascular systems that would allow them to maintain activity levels that would kill most species. Their bone structure was dense enough to operate in high gravity. Most terrifying of all, they had developed immune systems capable of surviving diseases and toxins that would be instantly fatal to other species. And their psychological profile? That's the worst part, sir. They appear to be genuinely motivated by protecting others. This isn't territorial expansion or resource acquisition. They simply heard that innocents were being killed and decided to intervene. Gextar's claws scratched nervously against the metal of his command chair. The Vraktar had built their empire on a simple principle. They were the strongest predators in the galaxy, and strength gave them the right to take what they wanted. But these humans seemed to use their strength differently. Sir, his communications officer interrupted, we're receiving reports from the Zerion system. Another human fleet has appeared. The Zerion system had been under Vraktar control for 5 years. The native Zerions were crystalline beings who the Vraktar had been using as living decorations in their palaces. It should have been a routine occupation with minimal resistance, Captain Lisa Park commanded, the human task force that dropped out of hyperspace above Zerion Prime. Unlike the desperate rescue at Kepler 442b, this was a planned military operation. The humans had spent 3 weeks studying Vraktar tactics and developing countermeasures. Tactical, what do we have? Park asked from the bridge of her flagship, the converted freighter UES Determination. 15 Vraktar vessels in defensive positions around the planet. 3 orbital mining platforms. Estimated ground forces of 50,000 troops. And civilian populations? Concentrated in underground cavern systems similar to the Zephyrian refugees. The Vraktar appear to be using them for forced labor. Park nodded grimly. Humanity's second interstellar battle would be different from their first. They had learned from experience, adapted their tactics, and improved their equipment. The Vraktar were about to discover what made humans so dangerous. They got better at killing their enemies every time they fought. All ships, implement tactical pattern Delta. Let's show them we've been practicing. The human fleet didn't charge straight in like before. Instead, they used the system's asteroid field as cover, firing kinetic rounds from concealed positions. The Vraktar found themselves under attack from multiple directions simultaneously, their formations disrupted before they could respond effectively. But the real innovation came when Captain Park deployed humanity's newest weapon. Space Marines trained specifically for zero-gravity combat. Sergeant First Class David Chen led Alpha Team through the blown-out hull of a crippled Vraktar cruiser. His team moved through the zero-gravity environment like they had been born in space, using magnetic boots and maneuvering thrusters with an ease that amazed their enemies. "Remember," Chen spoke softly into his comm, "these things have acidic blood. Don't get it on your gear and watch for splashback when you take them down." The team rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Vraktar warriors. In the narrow confines of the ship's corridors, the aliens' size was actually a disadvantage. They couldn't maneuver effectively, while the humans could use the walls and ceiling as cover. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 6 Vraktar lay dead, and Alpha Team had suffered only minor equipment damage from acid spray. "Control, this is Alpha Team," Chen reported. Section 7 clear. Moving to secondary objectives. All through the Vraktar fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Human boarding parties were taking over enemy ships with a combination of tactical superiority and sheer determination that the aliens had never encountered before. On the surface of Zerion Prime, the ground battle was even more one-sided. Colonel Sarah Martinez had studied the failures of the Vraktar ground commander at Kepler 442b and developed new tactics specifically designed to exploit human advantages. "Listen up, people," she addressed her battalion commanders over the radio. "These things are big, strong, and mean, but they fight like individual predators, not like a coordinated military force. We're going to use that against them. Instead of meeting the Vraktar in direct combat, the human forces spread out across the planetary surface and began a systematic campaign of harassment and attrition. Small teams would strike at Vraktar positions, inflict casualties, and disappear before the enemy could respond effectively. The Vraktar were equipped for conventional warfare against species that would fight them directly. They had no answer for humans who treated the entire planet as a battlefield, striking from unexpected directions and using the environment itself as a weapon. Lieutenant Commander Jessica Wong led a team that had been tasked with destroying a Vraktar supply depot. Instead of a frontal assault, they spent 2 days studying the enemy patrol patterns and guard rotations. When they finally moved, they took out the entire facility without firing a shot, using shaped charges placed at structural weak points they had identified through careful observation. "Base, this is Wraith Team," Wong reported as the depot collapsed behind her. "Target destroyed, no human casualties, moving to secondary objective." But perhaps the most important battle was happening in the medical tents where Dr. Elena Vasquez was treating both human and alien casualties.
She had made a discovery that would change everything.
"Colonel Martinez, you need to see this," she called over the radio. Martinez jogged over to the field hospital, where Vasquez was standing over a wounded Vraktar warrior. The alien was conscious but restrained, its acidic blood carefully contained in specially designed medical equipment. "What is it, Doc?" "The acid blood that's supposedly so dangerous to other species? It's basically just strong sulfuric acid. Nasty stuff, sure, but nothing we haven't dealt with in industrial applications for decades. Our equipment can handle it, our medical supplies can neutralize it, and our personnel can work around it safely." Martinez stared at the wounded alien. "You're telling me their main biological advantage is just not that big a deal to us?" "Not only that, but look at this." Vasquez showed her a comparative analysis on her tablet. "Their bone structure, muscle density, cardiovascular capacity, they're all adapted for a low-gravity, low-stress environment. They're impressive predators on their homeworld, but they're not actually that much stronger than a well-trained human when you account for Earth's higher gravity." The implications were staggering. The Vraktar's reputation as unstoppable warriors was built on their encounters with species from normal galactic environments. Against humans who had evolved in conditions that would be considered extremely hostile by galactic standards, they were just another opponent. Word of the victory at Zerion Prime spread even faster than the first battle had. The Vraktar Empire was facing something they had never encountered before, an enemy that not only refused to be intimidated, but actually seemed to get stronger and more dangerous with each engagement. High Admiral Gextar read the reports from Zerion with growing horror. The humans hadn't just won. They had completely dominated his forces using tactics that no civilized species would consider. They fought like the planet itself was their ally, disappearing into terrain that should have been harmless and emerging to strike at targets that should have been secure. But the worst part was the message the human commander had sent after the battle. To all Vraktar forces, you have made the mistake of thinking that predators only prey on the weak. Today you learned that when predators choose to protect instead of hunt, even the monsters need to be afraid. Every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, every innocent you have killed. We remember. We are coming for all of you. For the first time in the history of the Vraktar Empire, their forces began to retreat without being ordered to do so. The hunters had become the hunted, and they didn't know how to handle it. The Deathworlders were just getting started. 6 months after first contact, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command bridge of the UES Terra's Fury, humanity's first purpose-built interstellar dreadnought, and watched the final Vraktar stronghold burn. The fortress world of Kethmor had been considered impregnable, a massive military installation built inside a hollow asteroid, protected by energy shields that could deflect any known weapon. The Vraktar had not counted on human engineers who looked at an impossible target and said, "Hold my beer." "Detonation in 30 seconds, reported Commander Walsh from the weapons console. Chen nodded, watching the tactical display that showed the culmination of humanity's most audacious military operation. They had spent 2 months secretly tunneling mining equipment through the asteroid field, positioning it around Kethmor like a 3-dimensional shell. The Vraktar had never detected them because they hadn't been looking for anyone crazy enough to literally move mountains. 10 seconds, Walsh called out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. The explosions were synchronized to the microsecond. 50,000 tons of precisely placed charges detonated simultaneously. Not to destroy the fortress, but to change its trajectory. The entire asteroid began to shift, its carefully maintained orbit suddenly unstable. "Physics is a harsh mistress," Chen murmured as she watched Kethmor begin its inevitable descent toward the system's star. Inside the fortress, High Admiral Gextar felt the artificial gravity fluctuate and knew his empire was finished. The humans had done something impossible. They had turned an entire asteroid into a kinetic weapon against itself. In another hour, Kethmor would be close enough to the star that nothing could survive. His communications officer looked up from his console, fear evident in his posture. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was calm, professional, and utterly implacable. "High Admiral Gextar, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition. Your fortress is currently on a collision course with your system's primary star. You have approximately 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or you and every Vraktar under your command will be reduced to component atoms." Gextar laughed bitterly. "And if I surrender, will you give me the quick death your species seems to prefer?" "No," Chen replied. "We're going to give you something your people have never experienced. Justice." 30 minutes later, Gextar found himself standing in the cargo bay of the human flagship, surrounded by the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. But instead of the torture and execution he expected, he was escorted to what appeared to be a courtroom. Admiral Chen sat behind a simple metal table, flanked by officers from a dozen different human nations. Behind them stood representatives of every species the Vraktar had oppressed, Zephyrians, Xerians, and half a dozen others whose homeworlds had been liberated by human forces. "High Admiral Gextar of the Vraktar Empire," Chen began. "You stand accused of genocide, slavery, and crimes against multiple sentient species. How do you answer these charges?" Gextar looked around the room in confusion. What is this? Some kind of ritual before execution?" "This is a trial," Chen replied. "A legal proceeding where evidence is presented and judgment is rendered according to law, rather than personal vengeance." "I don't understand." "You defeated us. You have the right to kill us all." Chen's expression grew sad. "No, we don't. Strength doesn't give anyone the right to kill innocent people. That's what separates us from you." The trial lasted 3 days. Evidence was presented, witnesses testified, and Gextar was given every opportunity to defend himself. When it was over, He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of rehabilitation, a concept that didn't exist in Fractar culture. But the real shock came when Chen announced humanity's plans for the Vraktar Empire. "We're not going to destroy your species or take your territory," she said to the assembled Vraktar prisoners. "We're going to do something much worse from your perspective. We're going to try to make you better." The Vraktar rehabilitation program became humanity's most ambitious project. Entire planets were converted into educational facilities where former Vraktar warriors learned about concepts like cooperation, empathy, and mutual aid. It was slow, difficult work, but humans had discovered that even apex predators could change when given proper motivation and support. Meanwhile, word of humanity's victory spread throughout the galaxy at light speed. The Galactic Confederation, which had ignored the Zephyrians' plea for help, suddenly found themselves very interested in opening diplomatic relations with Earth. Commander Thixara, the same being who had first heard the Zephyrian distress call, found herself assigned as the Confederation's first official ambassador to humanity. She stood in the landing bay of Luna Station, humanity's primary diplomatic facility, and tried not to be intimidated by the beings walking around her. The humans looked so ordinary. No claws, no natural armor, no obvious weapons. They seemed to be built for cooperation rather than conflict. But she had read the reports. These gentle-looking beings had dismantled the most feared military force in the galaxy in less than 6 months. Admiral Chen greeted her personally, a courtesy that would have been unthinkable before humanity's arrival on the galactic stage. "Ambassador Thixara," Chen said through a universal translator, "welcome to Luna Station. We're honored to meet with the Confederation at last." "The honor is ours, Admiral," Thixara replied. "I must ask, why didn't you respond to our first attempts at contact?" Chen smiled. "You never tried to contact us. Your communication networks are designed around species that have been part of galactic civilization for thousands of years. We've only been in space for a few decades, and we've been monitoring radio frequencies that nobody else uses anymore." It was a perfect example of the communication gap between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The Confederation had been trying to reach them through hyperspace communications networks that Earth didn't even know existed. "I have to ask," Thixara continued, "what are your intentions now? You've proven that you can defeat anyone in the galaxy. What do you want?" Chen gestured toward a viewing port that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. "The same thing we've always wanted. To explore, to learn, and to help people who need help. We didn't come to the galaxy to conquer it. We came because someone was in trouble and asked for our help. But surely you must want something in return. Territory, resources, tribute from conquered species." "Actually," Chen replied, "we do want something. We want to join the Galactic Confederation as equals. We want to share our knowledge and learn from yours. And we want to make sure that what happened to the Zephyrians never happens again." Over the following weeks, humanity outlined their proposal for galactic peace. They would establish the Terran Protection Corps, a multinational military force dedicated to protecting species that couldn't defend themselves. Any world threatened by aggressive neighbors could call for help and humanity would respond. The Confederation Council was skeptical. "What's to prevent you from using this protection corps to build your own empire?" asked Councillor Vex then from the Andromedan Republic. Chen's response became famous throughout the galaxy. "The same thing that prevented us from enslaving the Vraktar after we defeated them. We don't want an empire. We want a community." The vote to accept humanity into the Confederation was unanimous. 5 years later, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the medical facility on New Zephyria, watching former Vraktar warriors working alongside Zephyrian engineers to rebuild the crystal forests that had been destroyed in the original invasion. It was slow work, but the results were beautiful. New growth that combined Zephyrian artistry with Vraktar engineering skills. "Doctor," one of the Vraktar called to her, "we have successfully germinated another grove. The crystals are growing faster than projected." Vasquez smiled. The being who addressed her was Crickstar, formerly a Vraktar assault trooper who had spent his life destroying things. Now he was a gardener, helping to create beauty instead of spreading fear. "Excellent work, Crickstar. How are you adjusting to the collaborative approach?" The former warrior paused, considering his words carefully. "It is strange, Doctor. For my entire life I was taught that strength meant the ability to take what you wanted from others. But working with the Zephyrians has taught me that real strength means the ability to help others get what they need. It was a sentiment that would have been impossible for a Fractar to express just a few years earlier, but humans had discovered that even the most hardened predators could learn empathy when given proper examples and support. The communication console in Vasquez's office chimed with an incoming message. Another species, the Centaurian Alliance, was reporting attacks by a previously unknown aggressive civilization called the Skelnari. They were asking for help from the Terran Protection Corps. Vasquez smiled and began composing her response. Message received and acknowledged. Help is on the way. Earth Defense Coalition ships are being dispatched immediately. Hold your positions and protect your civilians. The Deathworlders are coming. Across the galaxy, a dozen different species received similar messages that day. Some were from worlds under attack. Others were from planets suffering from natural disasters. And a few were from civilizations that simply needed help with technological problems they couldn't solve alone. All of them received the same response. Help is on the way. It had become humanity's unofficial motto, the promise that had transformed them from an unknown species on a remote death world into the galaxy's protectors. They had proven that the strongest predators weren't those who preyed on the weak, but those who chose to defend the innocent. The Deathworlders had found their place in the galaxy, and the galaxy was a safer place because of it. In the end, the most dangerous species in the galaxy turned out to be the one that used their strength to help others instead of harm them. And that made all the difference.